As a finance professional in a disrupted business landscape, what does it take to be in demand? What does it take to attract great paying international roles? If you're an ICAN member, it'll just take one exam. That's all it takes to complete the globally recognized CIMA professional qualification and the internationally respected CGMA designation. As a CIMA member and a CGMA designation holder, employers will look at you as a finance professional, constantly acquiring new skills to add value to the business. That's why they'll be willing to pay premium to hire and retain you. If you have 5 years of relevant experience and are an ICAN member, you can directly sit for the final exam of the CIMA Professional Qualification, the Strategic Case Study exam. Start studying the CIMA Professional Qualification. Prepare to make an impact.
Good evening, professional colleagues, friends of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, students, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure once again to welcome you to another edition of ICAN on Air, powered by our great institute, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. And I want to appreciate you for always making out time every Tuesdays and Thursdays by the hours of 6 to 7 to learn more about the contemporary things and about contemporary topics that is trending, that can add value even to ourselves and to our profession. And this evening, I have come with another topic that is germane and very important and strategic even to the things that are happening, which is blockchain technology, the end of auditing. A question that is very germane. And we have guesting with us today, a seasoned professional, accomplished person, Tolani Jemi Alade. He will be discussing the topic today. She is a turnaround expert, strategist, and financial professional, an executive who continuously made constructive contribution to enhance corporate objective with the experience of almost 2 decades in the accounting and finance. She has a degree in accounting and finance, master in business administration, a chartered accountant, and blockchain expert, certified by the Blockchain Council. She was also part of the DLT, that is the Distributed Ledger Technology, Talent Cohort 4 of the Frankfurt School in Finance and Management, and has attended many and several courses. Currently the managing partner of Tripartite Consulting and skilled in developing strong innovative skills for business support, strategic planning, and execution in high growth emerging market through efficient technology enabled process. Our guest for today is well loaded, and she's out to do justice to our topic, which has to do with is blockchain technology, the end of auditing. I've been having a lot of things where people are keep coming telling us that a lot is happening in our profession, but we'll definitely give them more insights to this, as we will be hearing more from our guest today, Tolani. But before I bring her in, let me quickly notify you that today is well loaded. Get your pen, get your book, as once I'm back with the guest, we'll hit the ground running. On this note, let me go on a very short break, and when I'm back, we'll do justice to the topic. I will be right back. Welcome back. And it's my pleasure to have with us this evening Tolani Jemi Alade, FCCA. Tolani, welcome on board this evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good evening and good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks to have you. We hit the ball rolling as we talk on the topic is blockchain technology, the end of auditing. And let me start by asking this question. We've had a different type of technology, but this blockchain sounds new. And aside that, very unique. Of particular interest is the allusion that blockchain technology, auditing, will no longer be necessary. What's your position on this?
I mean, there's a really strong potential for the accounting community to shine in this new arena, right? And the role of accounting professionals in technology at this time cannot be overemphasized. Blockchain is definitely a novel area. I mean, it's been around for a while. I would say since about 1992 or 1982. But the actual adoption and use really started in 2008 by a pseudonym and a group of anonymous persons called Satoshi Nakamoto. How does this tie into our profession as accountants, right? We've leveraged on technology so far, but blockchain in itself is based on what we do as accountants, right? We build on confirmation and verification. And that's what blockchain is really all about, right? Blockchain ensures real-time transactions are possible across borders on a distributed ledger, right? I mean, at its core, blockchain is a ledger system. And I mean, the accountant is, accounting is synonymous to ledgers. I mean, we have a sales ledger, purchase ledger, nominal ledger, general ledger. And that's what blockchain is really all about. But there are some very unique features that differentiate it from our traditional ledger. I mean, it's here to stay, no doubt about that.
It's here to stay. It's here to stay. And I heard from what you said that great opportunity for accountant, even in this fintech world that we're talking about, this technology-driven world, most of blockchain. And you said something very germane. The blockchain we're talking about is about confirmation and verification. And that's exactly what we do as accountant. So as a rider to my first question and giving to your response, can you then say that blockchain signal the end of auditing?
Not at all. Not at all. Instead, it would aid auditing as we move on. Let me just give us an overview of what the features of blockchain is, so that ties nicely into why it will still be relevant to the audit and accounting profession in general, right? The blockchain is a type of database that stores information or data in a structured and decentralized way, right? It's an electronic system that creates a cryptographically secure and immutable record of any transaction of value. I have thrown in some buzzwords, some interesting words that we may not be familiar with, right? The distributed ledger in itself ensures that all participants in a transaction. So if in a traditional audit, you're checking the records of what transactions that have occurred, right? But you won't always necessarily have access to the records of the other user or the other party in the transaction. But in with blockchain technology, all the players, all the participants in that transaction are recorded and represented on something called a distributed ledger, right? There also has to be something called consensus with every transaction, right? There's peer-to-peer verification. Everybody on that node has to confirm, right? And I mean, cryptography ensures that that confirmation is digitally signed and approved. And these all run on something called a smart contract. Smart being contract being smart because it self executes on the ledger. Now, with audits, we typically have to check our transactions, verify the authenticity, the completeness, the accuracy, and whatnot, usually on a periodic basis, historic basis as well. But with blockchain, there's real time checking. And I mean, the auditor still does that. The only difference is everything that you typically, use paperwork to do or have to do like a third party verification for won't exist anymore in with blockchain technology. So it's here to improve and aid and ease and even perfect what the auditor would usually do. So it's a technology that we definitely have to embrace as professionals, as as yes, as accountants. It's if you ask me, it's more relevant to the accountant than anybody else. I mean, I'm an accountant, so I'm a bit biased, even though the application is in across industries and will be across industries.
Very, very, very optimistic of the hope that you give to us as professionals that the blockchain is not taking away our job, but it has come to
Not
improve, to aid, to ease the progress, the process at which we are, considering the distributed ledger system that we are adopting. Let me just ask this question. But before then, let me just tell our viewers across the globe that the program, you are free to bring in your question. Our guest today, Tolade, is powerfully set to make sure that we do justice and broaden our horizon on this. Also, give us that comfort zone that you and I has actually been yearning for. Because Tolade, most people are thinking that technology is taking away our job. But you said it at the beginning, is to improve, to aid, and definitely to make things very easy. When we progress, what are the characteristics or destructive potential of this technology called blockchain, especially in auditing profession?
right. It's not going to be, the way we know it anymore. I mean, with increased transparency and traceability, which is one of the key features of the blockchain, auditors will need to ensure that number one, they are well equipped and they're well equipped with the information and the technicalities required to work on the blockchain. There's something called the triple ledger concept, which the blockchain also brings on board, and it's a movement away from the double entry concept like we know it in accounting, and what that would require moving forward, no, not require rather, but that what that would bring to the fore is there will be a third leg to that transaction, to any transaction that occurs, and not a separate entry now, but a stamp and a verification that that the transaction definitely occurred. So, I mean, the auditor would need to be able to verify that. They'll be able to run their checks, based on that. They'll be able to understand the new language and the requirements of that process.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you mentioned something I remember days of accounting, double entry concept. But for the blockchain, we seem to be having the triple ledger concept, which is very compared to one another, serving the same purpose, but possibly a step ahead. Tolani,
Absolutely.
can you give us A practical example of how blockchain technology has impacted, improved, either way, the audit practice. Practical
Oh,
examples.
there's several examples. Um, how practical do you want it now? Okay. Let me use the real estate. I mean, across different sectors, but let me use the real estate industry, for example. For land registration and title registrations on the blockchain, traditionally you had to go and do a search, with the lands registry and thereabout. But with blockchain, you can sit at once you have access to the blockchain, and you can get the history of the transactions, you can get the history of the title documents, you can get the history of everything that has occurred on that particular real estate transaction. Did I get your question? Does that answer the question? Hello. Hello.
As a finance professional in a disrupted business landscape, what does it take to be in demand? What does it take to attract great paying international roles? If you're an ICAN member, it'll just take one exam. That's all it takes to complete the globally recognized CIMA professional qualification and the internationally respected CGMA designation. As a CIMA member and a CGMA designation holder, employers will look at you as a finance professional, constantly acquiring new skills to add value to the business. That's why they'll be willing to pay premium to hire and retain you. If you have 5 years of relevant experience and are an ICAN member, you can directly sit for the final exam of the CIMA Professional Qualification, the Strategic Case Study exam. Start studying the CIMA Professional Qualification. Prepare to make an impact.
Right. So the days of, sample-based substantive testing, for example, will soon be challenged. As auditors will resort to blockchain technology to test the whole population of transactions instead of substantive testing within the period, under observation, right? And this extensive coverage would drastically improve the level of assurance gained in affected audits engagements, right? Typically, real-time verification is not always possible in traditional audits, but in blockchain, it's a main feature. You are able to go and check, real time what is going on at all times. And instead of assessments, waiting for the year, end of year or interim audits like we normally do, 6 months, 3 months, as the case may be, right? Audit firms will be in a position to perform continuous online assessments throughout the period, of the audits and moving forward. And of course, fully automated audits is going to become a reality. It will be a reality. We do some level of, automated audits right now, but not end to end. Now with blockchain technology, it will be end to end. So the assessment of financial statements, for example, occurrence, accuracy, and completeness, will be something that the auditor will be able to attest to and sign off on, moving forward.
Yeah, apology. I'm sure there seems to be a very poor internet connectivity, and I sincerely apologize to our viewers. So we move on, Tolani. Recently, we heard about the public blockchain, private blockchain, consortium blockchain, and hybrid blockchain. Can you please educate our viewers on this different type of blockchain that we have?
Right. With a private blockchain, you have access to that blockchain, and you also grants people access to the blockchain. So let me give you an example. It's like having, you have a small server in your office, for example, and you have, admin rights to it, and you grant some users access, in a private blockchain. So you put your data on that private blockchain, and it is restricted to the people you want to gain access to it, right? There's something called the private key as well, which typically gives you access to that blockchain. Now, that private key is your key, is not to be shared with anybody. If you lose that key, unfortunately, you'll not be able to access that blockchain. You will blockchain in that instance ever again. Now, the public blockchain is accessible to everybody. We have some governments in the world right now, already using the blockchain for identity management, for certification, verification, for health records, and people are able to gain access. You can go on the Blockchain Explorer, for example, to verify the authenticity of that information on that blockchain. Everybody has access to it. As the word implies, it's public. Now, with consortiums, it's a combination of private and public. So you have access, everybody has access, but there are levels, there's a hierarchy of access. With consortium, it then goes, if you have extra access beyond what everybody has access to, you'll be given keys to that. You begin access beyond the public level. That's it.
Okay, that's brilliant. But I learned about consortium and hybrid blockchain. Is there anything like that?
Yes, hybrid is a combination of private and public, like I had mentioned, and a
Okay.
consortium is a combination of you can different private blockchains can come together, and public blockchains can come together to form a consortium. Normally, so for example, you have, let me use practical examples. You can have different parastatals in Nigeria who have their own databases, right? Who have their own blockchains. With a consortium, you all come together, and we have access to everybody under that consortium.
Oh, so brilliant, brilliant. Private is specific for individual. Public is the one that
Or
everyone have
organizations.
access to. You okay? Okay. So public is the one we all have access to, and iBridge is combining both the public and the private together. And consortium is group of blockchain user coming together to have things done on the same platform. Let me ask this, and before I go to my question, I still want to encourage our viewers globally to bring in their question so that we can do justice and educate ourselves the more on some of the things that has to do. Tolani, are there ways in which the audit practice can be transformed to address the threats of the blockchain technology? Are there ways?
Um, I won't say blockchain is a threat. It's certainly not a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, some roles will become obsolete, as a result.
Okay.
The traditional reconciliation roles, data entry roles, and fairly manual audit processes like I mentioned earlier, substantive testing, third-party verifications, like having to get bank statement confirmations from the bank and all of that will become dormant. But there is so much more that blockchain introduces that is definitely not a threat. It instead aids the job of the auditor, drives 100%, what's the word now? Accuracy, right? Data is immutable. So there's a perfect audit trail almost on a blockchain. A lot of what we did in the past, we would do electronically now. The reviews, the checks, the samplings, all of that will be done on the blockchain digitally. And something that makes it even more interesting is all the transactions, all the parties and players to a transactions will be all verifiable on the blockchain. So, for example, if I have a client who has provided me with services, right? I typically won't have access to their books. I would only have access to the level that I have reported in my books, right? But on the blockchain, once we're both represented on the blockchain, whatever transaction records that one side of the party, right, to the transaction records would automatically reflect in my own, my own books as well, my own blockchain ledger, right? So, it's not a threat at all. Instead, it makes the audit process more complete. It makes it more accurate. It takes away any form of error, whether by omission or commission, right? Because the auditor is still human at the end of the day, right? So even when we have an audit report, we still have, sometimes it's qualified, we have all these different things that we do sometimes. So it's definitely not a threat to the audit profession, but some things will become redundant, no doubt about that. And the encouragement and the admonition to my fellow colleagues tonight is to make sure that they equip themselves with the technical knowledge, right? You're not supposed to be engineers. Blockchain is quite technical, but we need to understand how the blockchain works. And if you ask me, the blockchain is just, it's a digital ledger. And as accountants, we understand that. We totally understand the ledger concepts, how a ledger works. So it's for us. It's a working tool for the accountant and the auditor.
Brilliant submission, at least alluding the fear of an average auditor that the blockchain has come and taken away. But you have said the reality, and that's the fact that there are certain things that would definitely not be relevant: traditional reconciliation, third party verification, and so on and so forth. But definitely, that are considering this as a threat, it will aid and drive the mode of operation, the process, giving 100% accuracy, the perfect audit trail, so you can have understanding of what the other party is doing and you can get involved. Mr. Razak Muritala is on the call and is asking this question: will it be a kind of software or an application to be deployed by the auditor, or a system to be integrated by organization that can then be interrogated by auditor? Please explain how the auditor can buy into and whether it's already in operation.
Right, the blockchain is already in use, and the good thing about it is available to anybody, everywhere and anywhere. Right? If you go online, you have access to the global blockchain, as we like to call it, right? But to have private blockchains, you would then have to go a step further, right, beyond the public blockchain to kind of grant to minimize the level of access that people have to that blockchain. It's not an app. However, there are several companies that are doing different things in the blockchain space right now, that are using blockchain to to aid what they do in their business, to aid their operations. There are few, players locally, for example. I mean, I don't want to mention names. I mean, this is not a sponsorship. But I mean, there are a few players already who are utilizing the blockchain, in their day-to-day operations. It's not like, the Sage or Oracle or the accounting softwares as we know it today, at least not yet. That is not mainstream yet. As at today, the use is, there's a public blockchain which we all have access to. I mean, you can go on there right now. If you have the keys, you can do a search based on what you're looking for. But the deployment at the organization level then requires, access to or creating private blockchains, which are typically done by developers. In that space.
Yeah, so I think your last submission, we prompt this question from Babajide. Does that mean accountant or auditor now needs to learn coding?
Not at all. Not at all. We definitely don't need to be technical. In fact, blockchain coding, something called Solidify, is quite technical. It's a new area, fairly new. It's not like the other programming languages that have become mainstream. So there are a few developers out there, not enough as we speak. It has its own different sets of codes. So just like being able to use the accounting softwares that we do now, we don't have to be developers, but they need us, right?
Okay.
They're advisors. We're the go-between, we're the bridge, because we understand the fundamentals. The fundamentals of accounting, and like I mentioned, triple entry and double entries are still there. That's what the blockchain is, applying and deploying, right? So what we would do as accountants, auditors, is use the blockchain, right, to carry out our businesses, our task, our operations, and work with these developers as advisors, users, give them feedback, based on our, experience, and, it will keep improving like any other technology has been improving.
Brilliant
Also
submission.
just add very quickly that, the blockchain technology has significant potentials, and cryptocurrencies or cryptocurrencies like we know of it today, it sits on the blockchain. NFTs sit on the blockchain. Metaverse sits on the blockchain. So it goes way beyond the accounting profession, right? It's like the internet. All these other things that we use today run on the internet, right? Our emails, our accounting softwares, and so on and so forth, Google, all run on the internet, right? So blockchain is, I would say, an equivalent or a higher level, an advanced internet, if that helps people to understand it better.
Brilliant submission. So we need not to be scared. You said it at the initial stage. Definitely will become advisors, the bridge, so that we can provide that fundamentals that we studied right from the beginning. I can see some other questions coming on board. Fagbile, okay. James is alluding that the blockchain is a digital ledger. I'll bring more of it. Okay. Olade Imbiliami is saying, does it mean the auditor will be able to see or view financial transaction kept by the client?
I like that. That's a very good question. Kept by the client being, the client doesn't want the auditor to have access to it, or of course. So that is one of the advantages and strengths of the blockchain. Total transparency, end-to-end transparency. So permits me to say we would not be able to hide things from the auditor anymore. The auditor can only see as far as you show them sometimes, depending on the situation. But with blockchain, it's 100% transparent. Everything that has occurred, in fact, it starts from the first block is usually called Genesis. Every single transaction that has occurred that relates to that, every single activity that has occurred as it relates to that transaction is recorded in different blocks, right? And you can't make any changes to that block. Once something is on the blockchain, is immutable, you cannot delete. You can only add information that either invalidates the previous one or supports your position. So we cannot keep, nobody can hide information on the blockchain, not at all. And like I said earlier, even third parties. So for example, if I have a loan and my auditor wants to check, the terms of the loan, the interest rates and all of that, traditionally you have to go to the bank, confirm, get the contracts, all of that to sit on the blockchain moving forward. And even that contract is automatically executed. There is no human interference whatsoever. So if you ask me, it's very interesting times ahead. Things are going to take a totally different turn from what we know it right now. And if you ask me, I think it will make the accounting and auditing profession a lot more interesting. I mean, earlier on in my career, I spent hours reconciling. We normally dread when the auditor is coming around or when you're going to audit a client, for example, because you're looking for supporting documents, or you've lost some supporting documents and you put information in and half of the data is not, and things like that. There is no human interference, in smart contracts. And smart contracts is the key feature of the blockchain.
That's wild insight. Talking about 100% transparency, the era of let's delete and because the auditor or the tax consultant or somebody is coming, let's pull it out and they will bring it in again. With blockchain, we say bye-bye to that. Fagbola is coming. Is it possible for the blockchain technology to result into tech neck problem in information warehousing, the technological ways? Our guest speaker should educate us more on this. I'm sure you understand the question.
Sorry, can you repeat that again, please? I missed the part.
Yeah, he is saying, is it not possible for the blockchain technology to result into tech neck problem in information warehousing?
Right. So, part of what the blockchain has tried to address is exactly what he has said, right? Now, I mentioned the word consensus earlier, and that's a key feature of the blockchain, right? If there's no consensus, there's no movement, right? So if I understand what it means by technique, like a bottleneck, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, consensus is a big, in fact, it's a feature on the blockchain. Without consensus, you can't move ahead. There'll be no record of that transaction cannot be executed, right? And in today's world, data is everything that we do. So there will be, the blockchain has the flexibility and the ability to accommodate as much, in fact, all data. So it's designed to capture everything going on, the processes, the task, the transactions, all the players, all the participants, all the way from, the requester to the government, to regulators, everybody involved. So that is what the blockchain is designed for, right? It's designed to take out these bottlenecks we may have now with applications not speaking to each other, with some interferences, with downtimes, with also a possibility of losing data, because, in today's world, as we know it now, you're still in the hands of the Oracle or the Sage or the SAP and the other applications we use even for audits. But with blockchain, it's owned by nobody. Yes, it's a strange concept. It's difficult to understand because it's not what we're used to or familiar with. But as we see it come mainstream, we would understand it better. It actually belongs to nobody. It's like the World Wide Web. Yes.
It
belongs
belongs to
to nobody.
nobody. And
Yes.
if I understand you, there must be consensus
Consensus.
between,
Yes.
yeah, consensus before anything can be executed. So which give that transparency that we've always been talking to, on which the bedrock of our profession is hanging on. Our justice is asking that you give practical example of how blockchain technology can be used to detect bank fraud.
Right. So actually, part of what blockchain is going to do is take away the need for traditional banks, right?
Mm,
Because blockchain, one of the features of blockchain is peer to peer, right?
mm,
P2P. What that means is we won't need banks again. We won't need agencies again, right? We
mm,
won't need brokers again,
mm,
right? So, if I need to lend money, for example, I need to make a payment to you, right? Once I know your key, I transfer the money from my key to yours, right? I mean,
mm,
if you understand how cryptocurrencies work, it's supposed to be, anonymous, borderless, with no intervention whatsoever from any regulatory agency. Even though, of course, as we go on in the use and adoption of blockchain, that will change because we do need regulation. It will change from the angle of, regulation will be introduced, but it will still not take away the main benefits of and the features of blockchain being peer to peer, right?
mm.
So
Yes.
again, it's decentralized, and I mean, it's computers, doing the verification. The decentralization is not having, the blockchain in different countries. It's decentralized because we have computer nodes in different parts of the world that all speak to each other real time, same time, all the time. And once you initiate a transaction from anywhere in the world, my key, I know your key, and I mean, the computer nodes confirm that I do have that balance in my key, and you're legitimate. The person receiving, or the key receiving the funds, it's initiated again without
Mm,
any human involvement. So the era of bank frauds is long gone. Yes,
mm.
and blockchain is actually a key threat to traditional banking like we know of it today.
A key threat to traditional banking. With the P2P, there is serious challenges for an average person. AJ Silicon, Revard past president, is thanking you for sharing your experience, acknowledging your fluency and your generosity. But he's asking, what are the attributes of blockchain that are developed in curbing corruption, electronic voting, and public procurement?
Right. Um, I really like that question, especially around voting.
Because that is needed,
If you
very much
ask me,
important.
I think it should be adopted in the next
Oh,
coming general elections. Well,
not
and that's
2023.
that's wishful thinking. Again, with identity management, which is key to voting, right? Once your somebody is your my details, for example, is imputed on a blockchain, it can never be altered, it can
Mm,
never be changed, right? It can never be edited. I mean, I'm looking for all the words to use to
yes.
describe how it remains permanent, it's immutable, it's like God, it never
Mm,
changes,
mm,
right?
mm, mm,
So the possibility of pseudo proxy votes, and not counting the votes right, and double identities, identity theft, is not possible on the blockchain. The other key feature is it's transparent, right?
mm,
So we can all see the number of people that have been registered as voters, for example, right? We know their, I mean, we can verify their identity, right?
mm,
And then there's something called the smart contract, which is automatically executed. So if I was going to vote for a particular party, right? I put it on there and it automatically does it. There's no human intervention. There's no manual counting. There is no counting from the office. There's no counting on Excel. There's no counting on an application. There's no counting on a special application that I hope no INEC official is here, that INEC has installed, that can be altered and edited. You know, it's all online, it's real time, it's on the blockchain, and it's transparent, it's visible to everybody. Same with public procurement. So, I mean, when you do it, I mean, you submit your bids. It's open. The tender is verifiable to all the parties that have submitted, and I mean, the basis and criteria for selection is also open. So, again, the key features of, you know, transparency, traceability, right? It is decentralized. It doesn't sit on my computer or my server or even in my country, right? Depending on what it is, whether it's public or private blockchain, it's available to everybody, right? And most importantly, is immutable. I cannot change a tender that has been submitted. I can't alter, you know, the contents. If there was a criteria before, it remains a criteria at the point of awarding, you know, the contract, or, you know, giving out the job.
Sincerely speaking, this blockchain, if we key into it, is going to bring a lot of improvement. Even with what you have said in the area of identity management, the transparency, we cannot just, it's going to be top notch. The traceability, you're able to know at the point that those things are able to. And you know the keyword, that immutability of saying you can't even edit. Once it comes in, it goes in. Once you verify and you say it's you, that's on, and it locks it up. Akonde is asking, how do you manage the financial information from human interruption and impropriety as one of the flaws of blockchain at the beginning is lacking of traceability of transaction by fraudsters?
I'm not sure I completely agree to that question from the aspect of traceability, because that's one of the key features of the blockchain.
Of blockchain,
Perhaps
yeah.
it's coming from the cryptocurrencies angle, right?
Okay.
Which, I mean, it has some sort of anonymous, you know, part to it. But I mean, there is a new feature now, right? That ensures that you put some sort of identity. I mean, there's a way it's done now that an identity has to be tagged to a transaction. So it's not completely anonymous on the cryptocurrency side, because of course, I mean, there's a lot of things going on in that space, you know, fraud, you know, people losing out and people coming up with all kind of rogue coins. But I would say that happens because there is not enough information and technical understanding, right? Education is key in that space. Yes, very, very important. But I mean, one of the key features is traceability and transparency. However, it doesn't mean that every single thing that is done is on a public blockchain. I mentioned private blockchain earlier, right? You only grant access, you know, to the people you need to grant access to on a public blockchain. But if I'm coming to do an audit in your organization, for example, right, and you say all the transactions on a particular blockchain and I can't give you access, wouldn't that be something to to worry about?
To worry, yeah.
Yes. I mean, if everything is on a blockchain and then we know that you're supposed to grant access, then there has to be a tangible reason for access to be denied.
That's
Well, I mean,
wonderful.
one of the key features is that, you know, things can be altered, right? Things can be edited, right? So if for whatever reason, because traditionally, you know, we can alter things, we can edit things. Even when we give our auditor access, we can, you know, doctor the document.
The transaction, yeah.
But in this situation, you can't.
You can't. The traceability and the transparency is just top notch. And like you said, information and technology education is very fundamental. And that will take me to this question based on your knowledge on this field. Is there specific certification for practicing auditors to become more efficient in the audit practice for this blockchain?
There are a few international bodies that do courses, short courses on blockchain technology, right? And I mean, there are different aspects. There's, the development itself, which is coding, right? There is understanding how the blockchain works. There is blockchain architecture. There are a few universities now that are, doing MSc programs, along those lines, digital currencies, blockchain technology, but not in the accounting profession. So it's
Hmm.
part of the curriculum, but not a standalone.
Okay.
I mean,
A
there's
complete.
a lot of there are a lot of resources. I mean, online, and a lot of you know companies who are in this space focused
Hmm.
on education,
Hmm.
educating people on blockchain technology. That are offering several courses depending on your area of interest in the blockchain ecosystem.
That's Dave. So the internet is there for us to launch into and tap more knowledge on this blockchain technology. As we custom, time is always not our friend. Can you educate us on the impact of this blockchain technology uh, on the global economy?
Oh wow! I mean, blockchain is believed to be. It's predicted that it would drive the GDP of the world by almost 1.3 trillion by 2030, right?
Hmm.
And based on all these amazing features and different, startups and organize. I mean, most big tech companies out there today are on the blockchain already.
Hmm.
Blockchain would change transactions like we know it, would drive financial inclusion, right? Would change the face of a lot of things moving forward. So
Hmm.
I would say that globally and locally, blockchain is growing at an incredible rate, right?
Hmm.
It may seem disruptive, right? But it actually presents an opportunity to evolve everything. Everything.
Hmm.
Imagine a world where trust is not so much of an issue with transactions anymore, right? Then it will definitely promote more trade. It will promote more commerce, right?
Hmm.
A lot of the things that were not accessible and available to the maybe common man, average man. Let's use loans for example. A lot of people are not even. I mean, financial inclusion right now is not at the rate that it should be. A lot of people are still unbanked. I mean, blockchain will open up, that space for, you know, all of those and more. So um, things are going to be done a lot quicker, a lot more seamlessly,
Hmm.
accurately, and timely. So
Hmm.
it's the world that we live in now, actually, and it would only keep getting better. I mean, look at the effect of the internet in our world today. It's changing everything from healthcare, our medical records, right, to housing, to banking. Everything can be done peer to peer moving forward, right? I
Hmm.
can wake up tomorrow and do a transaction with you directly without going through my lawyers. There is a smart contract, though, don't get me wrong. I mean, there are contracts that will guide, but everything will be electronic, right? So
Hmm.
it will aid and ease, the, the, the ability to do businesses and, life in
Hmm.
general.
Very wonderful submission. The aspect of it, the seamless, the accuracy, transparency, traceability, is something I feel we should just get into. Sincerely speaking, you've broadened our knowledge base this evening. And in 1 minute, can you give me your passing shot?
Right. Blockchain technology and adoption in the world over in Nigeria is growing at an incredible rate. I encourage us all to make our mark, right, in this ecosystem to drive and create a more socially inclusive and prosperous society. In the world that we live in now, it would be unfortunate if we're not part of the movement going on right now. The movement to a trustless, borderless, and timeless world.
What a brilliant way to end the program today, Tolani. We should be part of the trustless, borderless, timeliness. And you bring in the traceability and the transparency into it. A very brilliant and sincerely speaking, I want to appreciate you for honoring our invitation to come and broaden our knowledge, even on this episode of ICAN on Air. It's quite interesting and beautiful time with you in the last 45, 50 minutes. And I hope when next we call, you'll definitely make our time to honor our invitation. Thank you very much. And on that note, before I bring to a close today, let me quickly give few announcements before we call it a day. As you are all aware, and a regular thing that I announce on this program every Tuesday and Thursday, the 52nd Annual Accountant Conference of our great institute is scheduled to hold from October 10 to 14, precisely like you can see on your screen. We have just 60 days to go. Are you ready to move? Are you ready to know that which we are discussing? Nigeria adopting sustainability for economic prosperity. We've had a lot of, very, very interesting facilitator, paper presenter that will be talking to us. And I will encourage you to visit our website to have idea of the cost. I know for those that will be coming, just for the registration is about 130. For those that will be participating virtually, it's going to be 75,000. And for the young accountant, which terms and conditions are attached to that, it's going to be for the rate of 60,000. I encourage you to be part of the 52nd Annual Accountant Conference. The 58th president of our great institute will definitely be, expecting and waiting to host you at the International Conference Center and Abuja Sheraton. Until then, I want to wish you the very best of the weekend and tell you that be part of the next program come next week, Tuesday, and I will be ready to give you another wonderful time and another interesting time. Till then, remain safe, and I remain your host, Olusegun Okunade, FCA. Till next week, Tuesday, please stay safe and you have God's blessing. Bye for now.